What's up, everybody? I hope everybody's still doing well and staying safe and healthy out there. Today, I want to address a few emails that I got. This one in particular from one of the patrons is regarding pretty much elaborating on some essentially how to prioritize, excuse me, how to prioritize practice time. And this is very extremely important because you only have so many hours in a day, and you want to make sure that you get the most out of your time. Even if you only have 2 hours, you want to make sure that that's 2 hours spent, well and not wasted. So, so initially in one of the previous videos, I was expressing that you need to learn tunes, you need to work on your alternate picking, you need to transcribe, you need to read, try to read a piece every day. You need to practice your scales and arpeggios, and that's very broad. So let's try to drill down and get to what we really want to get to, which is just to become a great player and develop your ear to the point to where you can hear and play whatever you can play whatever you hear, essentially. Because that's ultimately that's all you can do, no matter how many scales and how much transcribing you do and all of that. At the end of the day, the whole purpose of transcribing is to get your ear. It's basically ear training. It's working on ear training, learning vocabulary, all of that stuff. So here's what I would suggest, and this is what I found that works for me, and even how I practice now. The first thing that I do, of course, is warm up my fingers, and you can kind of kill two birds with one stone. So I warm up. I'll play a song that I had on my mind. For instance, this morning I was practicing over A La Mode. A La Mode is a very it's a simple song by Art Blakey, but I was more so just playing over it to warm up. Because sometimes another thing that I over my years have discovered is that it's fun and it's good sometimes to play over songs that you've grown to like or love, and just play through it as if you're a part of the band. And that's a warm up technique that I use. Whether I'm just I might just noodling, but even through your noodling, you're warming your hands up, you're warming your fingers up to get ready for your daily practice. And on top of that, I found that it's great because it's the closest, or it's closer to being in a performance aspect as you can possibly get in your practice. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're playing along with the performance, or even you might go to YouTube and see, like, there's another guy that I admire, great guitarist named Jesse Van Ruler, and I don't know if you all are familiar with him, but I've been checking him out a lot lately, and I really dig his playing. So I just found some videos on YouTube of him playing some standards, and I just played along with the video, because it's one thing to practice to a metronome, but it's another thing to play, with a band in a performance setting, because the time is never, like, because we're human beings and not robots, the time is not going to be constant. It's going to be moving, even if it's up, a few clicks there. Even the most disciplined drummer is not going to be without the assistance of a metronome, is not going to stay at the same BPMs. So I would say, first and foremost, you got to warm up every time you play, because that's going to give you some longevity in your playing as well, as you become an older gentleman or whatever, or lady, excuse me. So so practice if you have 2 hours. The other thing that I have to encourage you to do is be realistic with the time that you have. And I always encourage students to, you don't have to do everything in the same set time. So for instance, if you have 2 hours of practice time, break it up so it doesn't become boring for you, and also so that you don't so that you're not necessarily interrupted. It's very difficult to practice sometimes for 2 or 3 hours straight without any interruptions. And with that said, I would say, okay, when you wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and, get ready, just set aside 30 minutes. If you're going to say, okay, every day I'm going to practice at least 2 hours a day, break it up into 4 30-minute increments, or 2 30-minute increments, and then an hour long session. But just however you do, you want to take breaks and pace yourself throughout the day, because the other thing I've learned over time is that when you step away from the instrument and come back, then you really know how much you've retained in that practice session. And the more you do that, the quicker you are at retaining the information. The more you practice and step away and practice and step away, you'll find like, dang, your fingers are, more apt to go where your mind tells them to go. It's a weird phenomenon. I know some of y'all might be like, really? But yes, it's absolutely true. You practice and then put it away for a while, do what you need to do throughout your daily day and or throughout your daily routine, and then come back to it, because that will reinforce what you are practicing. So like I said at the beginning, I would just play along to whatever recordings. If it's too fast, find a slower recording and just get your fingers worked up and just play whatever you hear. Sometimes you might even hear, like I hear the artist using a riff or something, and I try to see how quickly I can grab that riff, that he's playing, and just repeat it. And it's not. I wouldn't consider that noodling, because you're actually actively thinking about something. So that makes it even better. And because I understand, especially in this day and time where everything is moving so fast, you only have so much time to devote to what you love to do versus what you have to do, until you can get to a place where what you have to do is the same as what you love. If you are blessed and fortunate enough to be a full-time musician where you're working on music every day and that's your job, you're getting paid to do that, then that's amazing, because now your work becomes your play and vice versa. Your play is your work. But most people don't have that luxury, and quite frankly, in this day and time with COVID, it's not a luxury. It's not even, something that is able to be done, period, because if you got to eat, of course you're going to have to do what you have to do, and usually that doesn't involve music, unless you have, like I said, a gig, whether you're playing at a church or something that's very constant and salaried, where you can get a steady income. So getting back to the initial question, so yes, you got to practice your scales. You got to practice, transcribing for your ear training. You got to practice, reading. You got to practice, your scale studies. But so, like I said, the way that I prioritize my practice is, I have a daily planner that I write in every day. I would also encourage you to get yourself a planner. That way you can jot down what you've practiced, the songs that you've gone over, the scales, whatever you do, write everything down so that you can keep a daily log and track sheet of, okay, this is what I did, and then try to create, a set of goals for the next day. Okay, so today, right now, I'm working on the Coltrane tune, Straight Street, and Cedar Walton's Firm Roots. So I've already checked that off on my list. I've gone over the melody. I've played through the changes, and I set my timer honestly now, because I don't have as much time as I would like. Of course, we would all like to be able to just practice all day, every day for hours and hours in. But I try to set a strict time limit. Okay, for 30 minutes, I'm just going to practice this song, Firm Roots, and just play it over and over and over again. Listen to different recordings of it. Listen to Bob Berg's solo on the original. Listen to, Cedar Walton play through it and just play along with them. Try to cop what they're doing. Yes, there's a few videos out there where they play it at a breakneck tempo. So, if it's too fast, play, solo through it in eighth notes, solo through it in quarter notes, whatever you hear, because once again, you're training your ear to hear what is, or, you're training your ear to play what you hear, if that makes any sense. So I set my timer. I would encourage you also to get a timer so you can stay true to your time that you have to practice. And, you spend 30 minutes playing through that tune. And in that one instance, what you've done is you've started learning another song. You have worked on essentially you've worked on your ear training. You may not you may not necessarily be transcribing the solo. You may just be playing through it, but you're working on your performance. You're working on your ear training. You're learning another song. So in essence, you've already killed 3 birds with 1 stone, and just playing along with a recording. And then of course, the easy thing that you can the easiest thing, of course, is to do scale studies. Those are the more, I guess, mundane things that you have to do. But if you're working on a song, why don't you use, and this is what I do, create scale studies to help you learn the song. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is just play. All of the stuff that we're doing in the preparation is so that when we hit the stage, we can execute. And the best way to execute the best way to prep is to try to put yourself in a situation, in an environment that is as close to the actual real deal as possible. And I'm speaking as if the goal of everybody is to become a professional guitarist, a professional musician. Even if, you decide you have another profession in mind, when you go and play on a stage, no matter where you are, people consider you to be a professional. When you pick up that instrument and you start plucking, you want people to know, yeah, I may not be a quote unquote full-time musician, but I'm not a hobbyist either. Because at the end of the day, nothing against people who just want to do it for a hobby. You have to find your voice. You have to find your desire as to how far or how deep down the whole rabbit hole, as they say, you want to go. I made a decision a long time ago for myself that I never wanted to be considered just a hobbyist, because I just, whatever I do, I want it to be done, as much as a professional would do it, if that makes any sense. So if that's the same path and goal that you choose to take, then you have to, every time you pick up your instrument, you have to imagine yourself, okay, if I was on stage in a performance situation, which is, I know it's hard right now with COVID and everything, but if I'm on stage performing, how can I emulate that in my practice? Because that's all that matters. Like when you hit the stage, nobody cares about how many scale studies you've practiced, how many songs you've transcribed, all of that stuff. They only care about what they're hearing at that time. So out of the years of study that I have accumulated, I found that the best way to prep for stage performance is to perform along with these great recordings that are out there, because all the answers to your questions as far as how to become a great player are on the recordings, and all the great musicians who you're listening to did this very same thing when they were studying the music. You can't get around it. The only thing that we can try to do is cut the amount of time that it would take to get to that level of greatness. And that's a personal journey that, it's different for everybody. But I will tell you that the best way that I've found so far to kind of cut some of trim the fat off of the practice time is to just start listening and decide what songs you want to work on for the week. You can do it. You can do it by the day. You can do it by the week. Preferably, it's always better to prep for, for the week and say, okay, these are the 5 songs that I want to work on this week, and you can break them down to the day. Okay, today I'm going to work on this song. The next day I'm going to work on this song. Next day I'm going to work on this song, and then you may definitely not, you definitely want to go back and see how much you remember of each song, so that when you do get a chance to perform it with someone, it's still, it's down in your spirit, and not just, you play it a little bit and then you forget it. So I hope, I don't want to extend the video too long, but I hope that makes sense. So just when you're prioritizing your practice, start with, number one, start with songs that you like, that you want to learn. And within that song, you can encompass all of, like, at least 3 or 4 of the items that I've already discussed as far as being pertinent to your practice, even reading. So, if it's a song that like, for instance, Confirmation, and you don't know it, go ahead and get a piece of sheet music. There's tons of sheet music out there. And I can even start posting some, sheet music on the Patreon, so that you all can just have it to read through. Everybody, of course, is at different levels of reading, but so if you're learning a new song, you're reading it down off the chart, you're learning the chord changes and the harmony, you're playing it along with the whatever recordings, and there's tons of, especially more the popular songs, it's tons of different recordings at various tempos out there for you to play along to. And I would encourage you to do that because, in a performance setting, somebody might count a song off like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. Somebody else might count it off like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. You know what I'm saying? So you want to be able to be proficient on all levels and tempos. So I think you should start there. And I promise, once you start doing that, it'll open up your practice regimen to be even more defined. So, and I think you'll find that you'll grab these songs, you'll learn these songs so much faster when you're playing it along with the recordings, and your phrasing, and this all boils down, like I said, it really encompasses all these things. If you like the song enough, then you start to transcribe bits and pieces of it. Even if you don't transcribe the entire song, you're still, when you're playing along with it, there's gonna be items that catch your ear, and you're gonna stop the recording, or you're gonna stop it and be like, okay, man, I like that, let me get that. And then you play it back. So you're learning the tune, you're reading the tune. If you don't know it by heart or whatever, then you're gonna get the sheet music and you're gonna read. Then you're gonna work on your alternate picking just by instinct. Because if it's a fast tempo situation, that the only way you're gonna get to that tempo is to work on your alternate picking. And then you stop the recording that you're playing along to as you're learning, and then you just figure out different scales that relate to the chord progressions within the song. So all of those things will get you to the finish line a lot faster than the individual study of each of those items. So I hope that answers your question as thoroughly as I can. And that'll also help you get beyond the plateau of like just the blues and pentatonic scales that most guitarists get stuck at. Because blues and pentatonic scales are not going to necessarily work over everything. As your ear grows, you're going to start hearing stuff as you listen to these recordings and play through some of these, songs. You'll find that, okay, that's blues and pentatonic, that's boring, or let me try something different, or let me figure out another way that I can incorporate these blues and pentatonic runs. Because, the runs can be just as hip as you make them, or they can be just as dull as you make them also. So I hope that helps for the patron who had this question. It's a great question, and this is something that everybody has struggled with, and people even, you know, everybody reaches a plateau, and then they try to break through to the next level. So this is going to be a never-ending journey of trying to find the quickest bridge to get to the other side of what it is that you want to do. Like I said, if you want to be a professional musician and you have limited time, then you're going to have to find the fastest way to, like, for instance, you get called to do a gig and you got to learn 20 songs in a day. Then you're like, oh crap, like, how am I going to learn these songs? And once again, I'm telling you from experience, the best way to learn those 20 songs, and I'm using that as an example, is you got to play along with the recording. No questions asked. You got to play along with it. So I hope that helps. If you need more information, or if you want me to dig even deeper, shoot me another email. But I think that pretty much answers the question of what to focus on when you're shedding. You got to focus on learning songs and using the recordings to play through them, and that will allow you to expand your skill and arpeggio vocabulary. That will allow you to expand your vocabulary of the music, because you're listening to some of your favorite artists who have the knowledge and vocabulary that you're trying to acquire. You're working on your alternate picking because you're trying to get your speed as fast as what you're hearing. You are working on reading because you may even want to go and find the written transcription of what you're hearing, and you want to take bits and pieces of that written transcription. So you're working on that. So that is going to be the answer to your question. All right, take care. I'll talk to you soon.